Good evening, afternoon, morning, freaks and geeks. This is Cass, and I'm running a little late today. I had an emergency errand to run this morning, so I wasn't able to record while the kids were at school. Can't record while the kids are here, because they interrupt and they're noisy, so I have to wait till they're asleep. Ooh. So today I'm doing personal Bizare Infestation. Well, more of like Pest. But yeah. Bizarre pest infestations. I'm going to start with the obvious one first. And before I get into it, I'd want to point out that it was all in the same house. It was weird. We had like the inspector come in, the landlord took a look at it, and there was only one hole that some of these pests could get in, and they blocked it up, and they still kept coming. So it was weird. Anyway, first pest. I'm starting with the obvious. Maggots. Yeah, so those aren't as uncommon as some of the other ones, but what happened was extremely weird. Alright, to point out exactly what caused it, because it's not the how that's confusing, it's the why. Reverse that. It's not the why. We know why they appeared, but it was the how. I'll explain it better. So I lived with my friends, and there was like a few adults in the house. So one of us was cooking, like almost every day there was someone cooking. And this particular week in summer was pretty warm. And this, my friend was cooking with meat. And the garbage pail was, like the garbage can in the kitchen was only half full, so we didn't take out the garbage yet. Which was a big mistake. So one day we're sitting in the living room, and my friend, the non-cooking friend, happened to look into the dining room next to the living room, and he just goes, "Holy fuck, what is that?" I look into the dining room, and it's best explained as an army of maggots. I mean, it wasn't a swarm, it was a huge army. And they were crawling as fast as they possibly can across the floor. And I'm going to spare the fullest details, but we set to vacuuming and sweeping them up, and they kept coming. And so obviously they were coming from the kitchen, and obviously from the garbage pail, but it had a plastic bag in it, so it's not impossible, but it's hard for them to crawl up that. And there was still more coming out of the pail. We couldn't figure it out. Eventually we got it all swept up, and we took the garbage and all of the maggots, fly babies, out to the garbage pail. 1 week later, went into the basement, and the floor was coated with fly carcasses. We sweeped it up, and we informed the landlord, and he thought it was a little weird too. We just figured they probably just died because they're flies. But it was just, the whole experience was weird, and it was creepy, and I don't like maggots. Second commonly vermin infestation, but it depends on where you live. So we're sitting in the living room again, when suddenly we heard this noise above us. And the light was flickering. So we look up to find a big winged rat, aka a bat. So I've had a bat fly in somehow before. So it was no like, oh, I wonder how this got in here, because they happened. So we were able to get it outside, and that's that. The next night, there was another bat flying around. Got that out too. 3 days later, another bat was in the house. Alright, to save for a very long story, that whole summer kept getting bats. And this is where the landlord had found a hole in the roof outside and patched it. But bats still kept coming. We figured that majority of the time it was probably the same bat getting back into the house. But one time there was 2 bats. The time there was 3 bats, one at a time. And we know that it's not exactly the same bat each time, because several times we found bat wings laying around randomly in the hallways. I have cats, so that's why. However, the landlord and I tried to find exterminators. They kept giving us an outrageous amount or asking for an enormous amount of money. Words, what are they? I don't know, apparently. But they want a lot of money from us to just look at the place, to estimate it. And that was cheaper than the actual removal price. And like the pet center, I can't remember the actual words, probably someone's mentioned it in the comments right now. But they wouldn't even come and get the bats out of the house. It's like, oh, they have to bite someone first. It's like, so you want someone to get rabies before you come get these guys? That doesn't make sense to me. I thought it was prevention. So anyway, so the landlord crawled up into the attic crawl space. There's no signs of them. Literally. No bat guano all over the place. No fur. No scratching. No biting in the wood and whatnot. There was nothing. It only happened during the summer, and it happened twice in 2 years. Figured it might have been the crickets that I had in a cage for my scorpion. And I think we confirmed that because when we got rid of it, it stopped. And the second time it cropped up, there wasn't much. But there was just one. He had large wings, and that was a little scary because, I don't know. Now, I know that they don't nest in your hair. It's just the fact that they possibly can have rabies is a little scary to me. So now, these next ones are not so common. And more confusing. We're in the kitchen. Of course, there's the back door. And I'm walking around and I'm in my bare feet. So then I stepped on something and it was squishy. I was like, oh, gross. I pick up my foot and there's slime on the bottom of my foot. And I look down and there's a slug on his back going, what just happened? So I picked him up and threw him outside. Later, it's not like the next day, it was much later, a month or two, found another slug in the kitchen. It was weird. Picked him up, threw him outside, wondering how the hell they're getting inside. And so another time, walking to the kitchen, and there's 2 slime trails going into the kitchen, then all of a sudden stop. And no slugs. And I was getting fed up with this. I was trying to figure out how they were getting inside. I looked around, there was no holes anywhere, and I could not figure it out. Another time I actually saw one crawling from the door. And I'm like, okay, how in the world did you get through? I opened the door, and it just rolled him. I was expecting to go over him or squish him or something, but no, it was so big, it could not fit underneath the door. Now, some bit of irony, and I love it. Calls the landlord, he comes over, and I'm talking about all these pests that keeps getting in, we can't figure out why. And I told him, like, you know what, I'm going to inform you, slugs are getting in. He looks at me and he's like, slugs? I was like, yes. Somehow they're getting, like, underneath the door or something. But I can't figure out how. And he didn't believe me. He was like, I don't see how or why slugs would come into the kitchen. I mean, they eat, like, leaves and whatnot, and there was none in the kitchen. And I looked down, kid you not, there's a slug on the floor. And I motioned to him, like, look, see? He looks down, he's like, mother effer. He opens the door, and he's trying to get him underneath. And it's rolling around, and at one point the door did slide over him. So, maybe they're squishing their bodies down and squishing underneath, trying to get in for no good reason. And so he picked it up and threw it outside. And we looked, and there's a slime trail going up the steps. Like, not like the steps themselves, because it was wood planks. But he went up the side of the steps. And just went around and under the door. All in the amount of time that he was in the kitchen talking to me about pests. Now, trying to recall, I'm sorry, I would be editing this out if I had my editor. I probably would be editing this out later when I update the videos. But there was a fourth one, and I can't remember it now. And it was a really bizarre pest, too. Well, I'm going to leave off on something else that was bizarre. It was actually a different house. But one of my friends had this running gag with herself that ladybugs followed her all over the place. And every time she visited, there was a ladybug on the windowsill. Like on the windowsill on the screen. But only like twice it was outside. However, there was this one time she was over and she spent the night. When we woke up, there was a whole bunch of ladybugs all over on the window. And she was like, that's it, I'm gone. She didn't have a problem with ladybugs. It's just for some reason, they decided to swarm the place when she was there. It was weird. Alright, so if I think about the fourth pest, I will record it, and I'm going to add it on to the end of this when I edit it. So you won't see it right away. And that would also explain why I would be wearing a different shirt suddenly. So, I guess that is it of my bizarre pests. So that is all. Giraffe.